get some individual background stories. Now, this is fascinating to me that you. What made you decide, A, to become a police officer, and B, to then decide to write fictional novels about?
I think the answer is the same for both. I'm always been interested in solving mysteries, and even better than solving them is making them. But actually, me being a writer, it started at the first day for me at working as a police officer. That was the same day as a 71-year-old man was being murdered in the town where I live today, not far from my own house. And my first task, of course, was to stand outside this country, guarding the country. But late in the night, when this crime technician was finished their work, they let me in. And I could see how this brutal crime has left traces. And that was such an impact on me. So when I, 5 years later, thought that, well, it would be funny to write a crime novel, and I wrote this book that was based on this story. So, well, part of my job is getting behind these bars, inside the crime scene, back to police lines. And I use that in my work, especially. Well, it's easy for me to describe crime scene, obviously, in my novels, and I've been there. And also, it's also my work, my job to interview people that have been in these situations, often only people that are being left behind. And it's also part of my work to interview the people that have been doing the murders, the rapists, the workers. And somehow in these long conversations, I'm getting under their skin somehow. So I think that is making sort of authentic into my novels.
Very interesting. Now, I want to just ask you a question about that I think will lead to a bigger issue about the novel Dregs that just happens to be on sale. It's a crime story that actually the basis for your novel isn't set in Norway. It's actually from the Pacific Northwest here in the States, right? Can you just explain a little about that? And then I'll pick on you for having to come to the States to find crimes to write about.
Okay. This story started in the summer 2008 when it was a developing news story traveling around the world up in British Columbia. At the shore, they have found altogether 4 silver fields. So now I thought, why is that? And nobody could give any answers. Is there a serial killer? Why are these kids drilling in the shore? So I had to make up the solution in a crime novel. So actually,
because the actual crime was unsolved, correct?
It's still unsolved, and it went bigger as I was writing, because when I finished the novel, altogether 9 silver feet have been washed ashore in British Columbia. And actually, this August, number 11 was washed ashore. And Time Magazine, they have made this list about the top 10 unsolved crimes of the history. And of course, on the top is Jackie Ripper from London. And you also find La Palma, killing of La Palma. But place number 7 is this case about the severities in Canada. So the seventh most unsolved mystery. You found the solution in my novel.
Lisa, can you please tell us about how similar are you to your protagonist in your novels?
Oh, she's me, I'm her, absolutely. All the way, every detail, all the sex. No, she's not me at all. I invented her. protagonist as a tool to say what I want. She's very useful. I've given her a terrible background. Her name is Annika Bengtsson, and that is actually a combination of the name of my oldest daughter, Annika, and my favorite boss at the tabloid newspaper Expressen, Bengt Bengtsson. He was famous for eating interns for breakfast. And he was a fantastic journalist. I loved working with him. He was screaming at the top of his lungs all the time. And I wanted my protagonist to be a combination between the sweetest thing on earth, my daughter, and this horrible tabloid boss, you know. So her name is Annika Bengtsson. And I wanted her to have a wide range of characteristics, even though she's a woman, you know. Women, we are human beings, even though we're not treated that way all the time. I wanted her to cry too much, you know, to be over the top, to be really intelligent and ambitious and mean to her colleagues. I wanted her to love her kids and work like a tank at the newspaper. I wanted her to be a bit of an incantation. If I keep talking about somebody like this long enough, maybe the rest of us can be a little bit more like her. So I had numerous reasons for writing about Annika Bengtsson, and she's growing up, actually not in my hometown, but in my husband's hometown. It's in the back, hiding. And her father drank himself to death, and she doesn't have any. She has a lasting relationship with her mother, and she killed her first boyfriend, actually. So no, she's not really, you know.
Oh, okay, good. That's somewhat. Now I want to ask you, what is the gender breakdown in Scandinavian crime fiction? I mean, in the States, it has really become much more common to have female crime writers in the States than it was even 20 years ago. And I would certainly say that, I mean, I was told this when I started writing crime fiction here, that, you know, 4 out of every 5 readers is a woman that reads crime fiction. Now, does that, do you think, hold true in Scandinavia as well?
Well, I've written political reports about gender issues, so you're not going to get me started. I can sit here all night. Women do read a lot more than men, and actually, men never read female authors except for the crime genre. So,
no, that's an interesting observation. Well, if it was fiction, I think men would read a female author that wrote nonfiction. And I think fiction, you may very well be right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, Tom, tell us about you're also a journalist, and how in the world does one come to be called the Norwegian Dan Brown?
I've actually traveled the world as the next best thing to Dan Brown, because he didn't travel the world. The thing was that in 2001, 2 years before the Da Vinci Code, I happened to publish a novel that had some striking similarities, leading up to a conspiracy thought that Dan Brown had plagiarized me, which is insane. I mean, for one thing, he probably does not read Norwegian. But we actually had the same idea about a theological thriller, using the Bible and the New Testament as the background for a contemporary thriller. Fortunately, I wrote mine first, and it was a moderate success in Norway. It sold about 10,000 books, which is good, but you know, it's not a super bestseller. After the Da Vinci Code, it exploded and it got translated into 21 languages and had me traveling around the world, answering the same question all over the time. Do I think Dan Brown has plagiarized me? Which I don't. Dan Brown has been very good at creating a mystery about the Da Vinci Code. He implies that he has done research in hidden archives and museums in Europe and uncovered this great conspiracy. I did the same research as him. We both read Holy Grail, Holy Blood. We both surfed the internet for conspiracy sites. And so basically, it's all out there. But of course, as a PR stunt, it's great claiming, you know, I went to the Vatican and I was admitted into the secret archive, which isn't secret at all. It's just a translation of its Latin name. And it works. Well, I shouldn't be mean to Dan Brown because he made the foundation for my own literary success. But let me put it this way: I'm happy that my book was first.
You made a comment to me the other day where you said it was interesting because your book is considered crime fiction, but this is the relic that we're talking about. But there's no crime.
Exactly. I had written a number of, well, I started out really as a kind of Stephen King-ish horror writer. I wanted to explore if...
The first Stephen King and then Dan Brown.
Yeah. I wanted to explore
For the top.
if it was possible to write horror fiction in a Norwegian setting. And then I wrote a couple of more mainstream crime stories. And then I wanted to explore, is it possible to write a crime novel without crime? In other words, using the genre characteristics and a plot-driven literary novel that reads excitingly, but which really doesn't have any there's no murder, there's really no, there's a relic that has been taken from an archaeological site, but that's not a very sexy crime. So it was an experiment, quite simply.